Thank you so much for that question. And um, as I was sharing at the beginning of this conversation, I think it's really important to talk about sustainability, not only because it's kind of a trend, a global trend for development. That's why we talk about sustainable development, but also is a current situation that we need to take action for if we want to keep our democracies, if we want to keep our cities and states developing and growing, benefiting all kind of people. So on the 21st century, in the actual decade, in the year 2021, it is important to talk about sustainability and sustainable development, because the concept that and the meaning that we have about sustainable development in the last decades, it has been changing through new research and through the last events that we are all seeing on the news, and we are all seeing in our local communities, such as climate effects, tornadoes, rains, earthquakes, which are not specifically related to climate, but is part of the inequality gap that can cause disasters. So we as humans, and of course our societies, are really vulnerable to all kinds of events. That's why I mentioned earthquakes, but specifically this the rate and the ratio, how often these events happen in our society. That's the response that we can have and how much we can handle. Just a few days ago, we were talking about on this weekend about the sixth reunion of the Latin American, the Caribbean CELAC reunion, and we all shared as countries, and specifically as as a society, we are all sharing the this common sense of climate action. So that's why it is so important. We need to talk about sustainability because it's something that it's already here. The effects are already here. The damage it's already done. So that's why we need to change that narrative. We need to take action for our society. And as you all know it, and you all been also the effects and the side effects that the war have in the Middle East, and how migration is also related to climate action. Not about climate migrants, to people that due to conflict cannot live on their mainland, so they have to move due to climate effects or some other kind of events. That's why we need to create common sense to it's become common, so it becomes acceptable, and we generate these new narratives where hate, discrimination, and other kinds of fears are not acceptable in our society anymore.
Thank you, sir. That's a great and amazing answer for this, sir. And my other question related to this, what should we accept of climate change, sir?
Yes. We specifically on climate, there's this year it's going to be really important, because not only because we're having probably the biggest event related to climate in the last decade, which is going to be the COP26, but also because we're entering this new decade of in this new era where the vulnerability of the countries and the people are more visible than ever. So that's why we need to talk about climate, and we need to take action for climate and the environment, the flora and the fauna, land. And what can we expect? By the way, this Friday we're celebrating a global climate strike all over the world. So it's going to be one of the first calls to actions back to normality in a lot of cities around the world. because due to COVID, a lot of protests and strikes were canceled or were impossible to deliver to actually make. So, what can we expect about the climate? That is that question. I love it, but that what can we expect depends on what we do right now. We can expect the worst if we don't act right now, but we can expect a good response if we take action for climate and inequality around the world right now. We still have time. We know what we need to do, what needs to take action, um, but that depends on the action that we take globally. Some years ago, we believe as a society, and also some researchers around the world believe that any kind of action and impulse that every individual could make will probably not have a big impact. So right now we agree, and due to science and indicators, we can know the impact that a single individual can have, and specifically 1 billion individuals can have around the world if we change simple actions, just as simple as the way that we consume, the way that we produce or food or supplies, just like plastics, straws, bags, etc. All the supplies that we need through our day. If only one citizen change it, it might not seem as a big impact. But if 1 billion people do it, that's where we can see the big impact. So that is just one of a kind, but also we can expect uh, a good response if we all act for it, if we keep the spreading the awareness of this climate emergency, and if not only just share the news. We need to take action. That is the biggest step on this year and the next years to come. We need to take action and reduce in our lives these harmful activities that keep hurting the environment.
A very great answer. And my other question with you, sir, what can we do as individuals to help the achievement of the SDGs, sir?
Yes, that's really important also to talk about how we as individuals, what can we do? We already know the challenge. We already know that climate change represents the biggest challenge that we're facing as a humankind, as we facing through history, because what it means to societies, to democracies, to current infrastructure, and to current population around the world. We already know the challenge, what represents climate. But what can we do as individuals? That I share some of that lines through the last questions, but specifically we need to change our behavior. We need to change our vision of the world. There's still a vision that the climate and the natural resources are forever and are unlimited. And yes, there in certain way, natural resources are unlimited, but we need to care. We need um, to understand that at this rhythm, by trying to supply all humans, all societies, the same rhythm and the same opportunities as the way that we're doing right now, it is wrong, and it is unsustainable. And by unsustainable, I mean it is dangerous, harmful, and kind of a suicide letter for the next generations in their future. So we need to change the way that we're producing and the way that we're consuming. Not only the basics, just like plastic waste and supplies, but also in all the supply chain that is connected all over the world. Sometimes we might hear that China might be the biggest contributor on CO2 emissions to the world. But let's remember that China is the factory of the world, and a lot of countries don't have these factories. A lot of countries can produce their own materials and their own supplies. That's why we have this bigger factories just like Germany, in Europe, or China, India, in some other countries, or Pakistan. But it is really important to understand that the CO2 emissions that some countries are having are totally and completely related to other emissions, which other countries are maybe not having, but they're buying from that. So it is explicit connected, one supply chain to another, and we are really used to we really used to have this fast fashion, fast food in a fast world, but it is just an illusion that we see. In it is just an illusion that we're having, of this fantasy of capitalism. We need to change that way, and that starts with the individual. That starts with the way that I see the world, with the way that I see myself in the world, and that's why it's so important to have this vision as individuals and as global citizens. This is a concept that I developed in my research. We need to create global citizenship, where we are not only interested and we do not only care, we not only have this identity, or this cultural pertinence from one country. We need global values. We need to have a global vision that keep these relationship and these connections, from one action to another, to one human to another, to one country to another, and understanding this connection, understanding these relationships, we can have this bigger vision and be tolerant, be humble, be and have this brotherhood, this sisterhood, um, and this humanhood, I will call it, with all the countries. Understand that we are all connected, and we can see it through COVID and through other things that are happening through the world right now. What happened with COVID at the beginning of all, we thought, as humankind, we thought that it might be some of these kind of new and kind of frequent viruses that were happening and appearing on China. But right now, 2 years later, we can say it wasn't an isolated event. It is an event that affects all the world and actually human history forever. So, if we understand this connection, if we act through the protocols, if we not only create beautiful papers, beautiful protocols, beautiful declarations, but we have those declarations in real life, the world will be a different thing. But in order to have that accomplishment, in order to have that real participation, we need to take action for it. And let's remember that sometimes we say family is the base of society. Family is where everything is created, and theoretically and sociologically, it is explained like that. But from sustainability and intermulti and transdiscipline, and and through the complexity methodology, we can understand the relationship of the family and of the individuals, understanding also the updates and the alteration that family has had all over the world and through the last decades. So that's why it is so important to have these new values in our families, in our societies, in our democracies all over the world. So yeah, I think that was my last longest response, but it is important to highlight this concept of global citizenship, global cities, and to have a global world.
I'm very happy to all hearing this and have a more success in in your life, and our phrase always with you, sir. I'm very happy. And my other question there, sir, what do you talk about cultural and social research, sir?
Yes, that's the next step that we need to understand. We need, when we talk about, it is, first of all, it is a personal line that I'm developing, that I'm basing my research on a cultural and social research for a sustainable development. and for a sustainable future, for a sustainable world, for a sustainable company, it is important to see this as a methodology, to see this a ABC guide, as a ABC map, a blueprint to to guide us through these next adaptations that we need to have as a society and as individuals, as a corporate, as a business, in all cons in all entities in society. So when I specifically talk about a social and cultural reset, I mean to change the way that we are identified ourselves, and as I mentioned before, the way that we perceive ourselves in the society. So I often through this question through the air and ask the audience to tell us, how can we, for example, how can we tell the Italian people, and just to identify one cultural and social identity, how can we tell the Italian people that their culture is unsustainable? How can we see that gender equality it is a need through the to the world development, but how can this alignment, how can this thing can go aligned with the world development and cultural and social respect? So we need to change the way that we see this identity. And by cultural identity, I mean, for example, Mexico have 120 millions of people of population, and those 120 million of population consume water every day, consume food every day. But the thing here is to think, to make research, to understand through to academic research, through science, through indicators, to understand how is the cultural, how is the culture affecting the world, and how this culture it is unsustainable. That is something that I have detected, and that I make this warning of, to change the way that we are having this um, cultural identity. And this cultural and personal identity, it needs to be changed to through a global identity, to through global citizenship. So we need to create these global values when everybody can be part of, when everybody can give something to this value, and we all live in harmony, and we all live in in a world that is sustainable. This vision for me, it is a temporary vision, when so it will help us to create a establishment again, to restore its balance in the way that we're producing and consuming all over the world. And through that balance, we improve our relationship with the environment. That's why it is so important. This alteration, this temporary vision of culture and social reset, it needs to be taken like an emergency. It needs to be taken um, so quick, the quickest as possible, so we can reduce our impact, or negative impact, and improve our positive impact in our relationship with the environment. So uh, that is specifically what I mean with cultural and social reset, and to understand our relationship and our impact, first of all, with our society, with the democracy, and the environment.
Wow, that's very great. And my last question with you, that's what would happen if we don't accomplish the SDGs, sir?
Yes, I love that question. Though,
Thank you.
um, if we don't, first of all, I would love to explain just a little bit and quick as possible what are the sustainable development goals. And we all might seen it as a beautiful, colorful, and funny kind of look at agenda or paper, this image of the 17 goals. But behind beyond that, there is a scientific base, there is a studied base that fundamental all this vision, all these colors, and all these 17 specific goals. So, the Sustainable Development Goals are a guide to improve our societies. It's a call of emergency. It's a call of alert that show us that if we don't change the way that we were acting in the last decade, we might suffer. We are going to suffer the effects of climate change and derivated for conflict. We're going to suffer bigger events, bigger impacts, and the thing here is that we might not be able to recover from the social impact, specifically on the inequality gap. So to reduce the inequality gap through societies, it is a hard thing to do. We need billions and billions of US dollars of each country currency investment to improve every people's life, to improve education, to improve sanitary and health problems, health infrastructure, just to mention those. um, and due to COVID-19, we just saw that the improvement that we have through the last decade, trying to reduce the inequality gap, just went off and disappeared in some month when the industry stops, when the jobs stops, and when the world collectively stops and have this quarantine, this confinement to reduce the deaths caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, so of the coronavirus, and that's why it is so important to understand what is the soul, what is the main object, the main goal of the Sustainable Development Goals, and it's specifically to reduce the inequality gap, and the soul is also climate action. So we need to reduce the inequality gap in our societies through climate action, through these programs that contemplate everyone, as the quote says, to lift no one behind, to keep all people integrated, to keep all people and specifically the most vulnerable, to keep them inside this agenda, to see for their needs and give them a response. So if we don't accomplish the Sustainable Development Goals, this is another question that some people ask me: what will happen if we don't accomplish the Sustainable Development Goals? And specifically in international law, which is what I also base my studies on, international law, there is not a specific sanction or a specific effect of not accomplishing the Sustainable Development Goals, not for the countries at least, or not at this moment. But
Zinedine?
the opportunity that we will lose is to improve our societies and to reduce the inequality gap. That is just the effect. Implicit right now, we might lose this opportunity because, as I mentioned, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be difficult to do it in the years to come, due to the effects and the other things that we as an administration and as a society will be working on. So yeah, thank you so much, Iomar.
Thank you, and your goals were very great, and have a more success in your life. I'm very happy for all this. Inshallah, once again, I will invite you in our live session and we'll know more about your experience and your life journey. Thank you, sir, for joining. And what is your last message special for me and our viewers?
Thank you so much. I think my last words will be to keep ourselves informed, to keep ourselves in touch with the information, to see what is on the last updates, to see how we can improve and what we can do in our activities in our local community, and start acting. We need more actions. We need more people working on the Sustainable Development Goals. We need more people acting for the good and for the inequality reduction in this last decade of action. So that will be my message. Keep up, don't give up, get up and start informing, start doing something for sustainable development goals. Sometimes it might seem frustrating, sometimes it might seem like there's no end and there's only bad news, but together we can do it, and as always, share knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's very great message for us. Thank you, sir, once again. And inshallah, once again, I will invite you in our live session. So, inshallah. So, take care. God bless you. Take care once again. Thank you. Bye.
Inshallah, thank you so much.